Have you ever felt like, without someone, you simply can't breathe? Like loving them is draining your soul. They say love should feel warm, but why do you feel cold, even when they're next to you? Why does your heart race, not from excitement, but from anxiety? Why does loving them feel like walking on eggshells? Afraid that one wrong word might push them away forever? Listen, love isn't supposed to make you anxious. Love isn't supposed to keep you awake at 3 a.m., rereading texts, overthinking silence, wondering, did I do something wrong again? Real love doesn't choke you. It doesn't leave you begging for crumbs of attention. It doesn't make you feel less than enough. But here's the thing. We confuse addiction with love. We confuse fear with connection. We confuse obsession with care. Because when we've never healed our emptiness, even a toxic bond, careful. That's not love. That's being trapped. There was this girl. She thought she was in love. But the truth? She was caught in a web woven by her own mind, a web made of longing, fear, and the desperate need to belong. You see, our brains are wired for connection, but they don't always know the difference between healthy love and toxic craving. Every time she waited for his message, her nervous system tensed, her thoughts spiraled into stories of rejection and hope, and her worth became tied to a little green dot on a screen. This wasn't the safe haven of love, it was an emotional roller coaster. A dance between hope and despair that hijacked her sense of self? Psychologists call this the intermittent reinforcement effect, like a slot machine. You never know when you'll win, so you keep playing, hoping the next message, the next smile, will finally bring peace. But peace doesn't come from another person. Real love is a steady flame. It doesn't flicker with every delay or absence. It doesn't make you feel like you're drowning in your own feelings. She was confusing her need for validation with genuine connection, mistaking attachment for love. Here's a truth many don't realize. Attachment is born in the soil of unhealed wounds, where fear whispers, "You're not enough." And until those wounds heal, we chase people who reflect that fear back to us, thinking they hold the missing piece. But the most powerful kind of love begins when you look inward, when you stop seeking completion in someone else's presence and start feeling whole all by yourself. Because only then can you truly love. Not because you're afraid of being alone, but because you're ready to share your freedom. Her story, maybe even your story, is a call to wake up. Because the moment you realize this difference, you step out of the cage. And that's where real healing begins. She waited, staring at her phone every minute, stretching out like an endless desert. Each delayed message was a tiny storm inside her chest, a thunder shaking her fragile calm. Her mind raced, spinning stories. What did I do wrong? Is he losing interest? Am I not enough? When he vanished for days, the silence wasn't just silence. It was a vacuum sucking pieces right out of her soul. She felt hollow, like a forgotten book gathering dust, or a melody that never found its chorus. But here's the thing, it wasn't really his absence breaking her. It was her own invisible chains, delicate threads stitched from old fears, childhood wounds, and unmet needs. A desperate hope that this person, this other, could somehow fill the empty space inside her heart. She clung to an illusion, a mirage of safety in someone else's presence. She didn't see it yet. She was caught in that twisted space where craving love fights against the terror of being alone, where her value, her whole sense of self, was tied to the flicker of someone else's attention, like a candle that only burns bright when held by another hand. Here's a secret most don't know. The more you try to hold on, the more you lose yourself. The harder you chase, the further love slips away. Because true love isn't a lifeline thrown to drowning. It's two people standing whole, side by side, choosing each other freely. So, what happens when the need to be needed takes over? When you confuse dependence with devotion? When your heart's loudest voice is the fear that without them you disappear? You don't just lose love. You lose you. But that wasn't love. It was a silent prison. A toxic attachment, eating her alive without her even knowing. The sad truth? Most of us are trapped the same way. See, real love doesn't leave you constantly anxious. It doesn't make you overthink every word, every reply, every silence. It doesn't make you feel like you're too much or never enough. But when your heart is wounded, confusion feels like connection. You think it's love, Because chaos became your comfort zone. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt relieved when they finally text back, but 5 minutes later, you're doubting again? That's not love. That's your fear of abandonment, disguised as desire. You see, attachment is tricky. It whispers, you need them. But what you really need is healing. Because broken people don't search for love, they search for safety. They don't crave connection. They crave someone to silence their inner pain, even temporarily. And the scariest part? Your mind can mistake the ache of anxiety for the flutter of love. Because the pain you're used to starts to feel like home. But tell me honestly, do you want a love that feels like survival? Or a love that feels like peace? Because there's a difference. And it matters. Love is freedom between two complete souls. Attachment is your old wounds screaming for rescue. But here's the tricky part. Sometimes, your wounds are louder than your wisdom. You meet someone, and suddenly your brain thinks, this is it. This person will save me. But pause, breathe, ask yourself, are they holding your hand or holding your heart hostage? You see, real love doesn't make you anxious. It doesn't make you beg. It doesn't feel like chasing. Love feels like breathing next to someone, not drowning without them. But toxic attachment? It's sneaky. It shows up as, I miss you. I can't live without you. I just love too much. Nah, you don't love too much. You're trying to fill a space inside you that they were never meant to fill. And let me tell you something hard to hear. If being without them feels like losing a part of yourself, that's not love. That's a wound, trying to heal itself through someone else. The truth? You're not in love with them. You're in love with the version of you that feels safe when they're around. But why? Why does your mind cling to people who hurt you, ignore you, or make you question your worth? Because toxic attachment often grows from abandonment wounds. Your mind locks onto someone because deep inside you're terrified of being left alone. Now, pause for a second. Before you answer that question in your mind, let's get really honest. Are you holding on to them because your heart wants to, or because your heart's afraid not to? Because there's a difference, and that difference is everything. Sometimes what you think is love is actually a wound, masquerading as connection. It's that quiet voice inside you saying, don't let go, because if you do, you'll fall apart. But tell me, is it really love if it costs you your peace? Is it love if you wake up every morning anxious, wondering whether they'll choose you again today? Listen, when your sense of worth depends on someone else's presence, you're not in love. You're in survival mode. Psychologists call this emotional enmeshment. It's when your identity gets tangled inside someone else's, to the point where you can't tell where they end and you begin. That's not love. That's losing yourself. But here's the thing. You didn't choose this cycle. Your unhealed self did. Somewhere deep inside, you're still trying to prove you're worth staying for. And as long as you carry that unspoken fear, you'll confuse possession for passion and control for comfort. So ask yourself, is this connection feeding your soul or silencing it? Is being with them making you feel more like yourself or less? Because the hardest truth is this: you can miss someone and still know they're not good for you. You can love the way someone makes you feel and still understand it's not real love. Real love doesn't feel like panic. Real love doesn't hold you hostage. Real love feels like freedom, even when you're standing side by side. And until you heal the places inside you that scream, don't leave me, every relationship will feel like a fight for survival. Here's the part no one tells you. Real love? It's not about clinging. It's about choosing. Choosing each other without losing yourself. Let me ask you something. Have you ever met two trees hugging each other so tight that they can't breathe? Exactly. That's not how nature works. And that's not how love works either. Real love is two people growing side by side, strong on their own, rooted in who they are, but close enough to share the sunlight. Now attachment? Attachment is when you plant your roots inside someone else, and when they walk away, you fall apart. Crazy part? You think you're scared of losing them, but deep down, you're scared of losing the version of yourself that only feels real when they're around. So maybe you're not addicted to them. You're addicted to feeling needed, to feeling like you matter, but only when they're there. That's not love. That's losing yourself slowly. And listen, who you are was never hidden inside them. You weren't half a person waiting to be completed. You've been whole since day one. Because no one out there is your missing piece. You were born whole. If a name just popped into your head, type in the comments, "It's time to find myself." And hey, subscribe to Aniverse right now. Because here, we don't just talk about healing, we help you become the healed version of yourself. Like this video too. Maybe someone just like you needs this exact message. It will find it through you. What's scarier to you? Being alone? Or being trapped in a love that was never real? Tell me in the comments. I read every word. Remember? Love builds you. Attachment destroys you. Choose wisely. See you when you're ready to heal. And when you're ready for more raw, real, soul awakening content, hit that bell icon. Because here at Aniverse, we don't just talk about healing, we become it.